Has there ever been a more tragic franchise than Paper Mario? The series starts with two banger RPGs, bringing the active battle stuff from Super Mario RPG into a crafted paper world. The games were funny, interesting, and most importantly, they were fun to play. I started my Paper Mario journey with Super Paper Mario on the Wii. It was a big sidestep from the first two games, but I loved it. It shed a lot of the more traditional RPG stuff, but I still think it's a good game on its own merits. I mean, there's a mega virgin lizard that uses a dating simulator to talk to Princess Peach. What's not to love? Super Paper Mario made me a Paper Mario fan, and I was really excited to see what would come next in the series. You ever get a gift that's worse than getting nothing at all? Sticker Star is one of the most bland games I have ever played. It felt like there wasn't any thought put into the levels, characters, or the gameplay. The titular sticker mechanic was a pain in the ass, and the whole game felt soulless and empty. Sticker Star also marked the first time I felt like Nintendo actually fucked me over. I was used to pretty much all their games being certified hood classics, but Sticker Star reminded me that they were not above trying to sell a bad game on name recognition alone. This was followed up by Paper Jam, which took two great series, put them together, and made the most forgettable adventure ever. Paper Jam will forever go down as one of the biggest missed opportunities in games, right behind Street Fighter vs. Tekken. It's like the team didn't know what made each series special to begin with. Instead, they chose to take two awesome series and make a shit sandwich out of them. After that, I was done. Color Splash happened, but I didn't even play that, even though I was one of the 5 Wii U zealots in 2016. Following Super Paper Mario, it felt like Nintendo was hell-bent on burning Paper Mario to the ground. The series continued after the first 3 games, but it never felt right. It felt like a husk of a series with the soul ripped out of it. So imagine my shock when I picked up Paper Mario The Origami King to find out it's actually really damn good. Origami King has that special Nintendo feel that went missing after Super Paper Mario. The music, the levels, the toad quips, everything has that Nintendo charm that opens up long dormant dopamine depots inside of my brain. First, just look at this game. This is hands down the best that Paper Mario has looked, even if it does run at a cinematic 30 FPS. Each stage incorporates bold, bright colors that draw your eyes to the screen and keep them locked there. It's when your eyes are locked there that you see how committed to the paper aesthetic they really are. Pretty much everything is made out of paper or some other arts and crafts material. It feels like you could really reach into the screen and grab the diorama that Mario and his friends are running through. It's very impressive, but good graphics from a technical perspective aren't everything when it comes to making an intriguing world. Otherwise, those dudes making Unreal HD fan remakes would be millionaires. You know the ones that I'm talking about. Those remake videos on YouTube where it's like one super grassy environment and everything else is way too shiny and the character looks like complete shit to control. And the top comment is always, "Somebody hire this man." Wait, that's Sonic Frontiers footage? Well, it looks like Sega hired that man. Luckily, Origami King is style and substance, creating worlds that are technically impressive and artistically interesting. It also finds a way around an issue that I have with a lot of Mario games. I find Mario can have an over-reliance on tried and tested stage themes. Seems like every single game needs calm green hills, freezing ice tundras, bright scorched deserts, and large open water worlds. Yo! Are you talking about my movie Waterworld with me, Kevin Costner? Yo, are you talking Waterworld again? No, Kevin, we're not talking about your movie. I told you before, I'm gonna tell you again. I guarantee you, bro, if I say Waterworld, I'm not talking about your movie. Please, leave me alone. At best, these places can provide some sense of familiarity while still providing a new area to explore. At worst, they can bring the whole game down by feeling too formulaic. Origami King still has many of these stage tropes, but there's an interesting spin on most of them. One example is a Waterworld, which is a whim Wind Waker homage instead of just being the worst stage in the game. Another example is the desert world. This time it's at night, and that simple change really is enough to make the whole stage feel much different than the standard angry sun hellscape that we've been seeing since Mario 3. There's also completely unique areas like an Autumn Ninja amusement park, which is probably the best area in the entire game. Each one of these stages has an inconceivable level of detail and polish in it. I have no idea how long it would take to make this stuff, and honestly, half the reason I kept playing was to see all the unique environments. They're really that good. The music matches the effort put into the visuals. I can still hear the main theme playing in my head days after I stopped playing the game, and I'm just begging one of you to please make it stop. The game repeats different melodies and instrumentation all over the place, which I really like. The battle themes in particular take elements from one another, so there's a nice through line between each zone, but each new song has enough different that it still feels like something completely unique, even though you've heard parts of it before. Toad Town also has music that changes over the course of the game. This really makes it feel like Mario is building the town back up. At the front, the music is sparse and empty. By the end, the core tune is the same tune, but it's full of life with more instrumentation. Soundtrack-wise, I'm feeling a light to decent 7 on this one. Transition. So, Origami King is the best Paper Mario has looked, and maybe the best that it sounded. But is it the best playing Paper Mario game? No. The first thing to understand about Origami King is that it isn't really an RPG, so you can take that stats page back to your D&D game, you motherfucking nerd. Don't go in expecting this game to play like the first 2 games in the series. Instead, realize that Nintendo hates you, is never going to give you what you want, and then you can go and play that Bugs Life RPG that I keep hearing great things about. This game does retain a turn-based combat system, but this time with a spin. You get it? The game calls these battles puzzle battles, and I think that's the most apt title. They're still turn-based, but instead of picking an attack and exchanging blows back and forth, the first step is moving enemies around. At the start of the battle, enemies pour in a spherical grid around Mario. Mario can either spin one row or push and pull one column on this grid. Typically, the puzzle can be solved in 1 to 3 moves of the grid. Solving the puzzle is done by lining the enemies up so Mario can jump down the line, or putting them in a 2x2 square so Mario can hit them with the hammer. Solving the puzzles isn't technically required. Not solving them just leads to weaker attacks and usually an enemy or 2 that you won't be able to attack until the next turn. The combat system takes a few battles to understand, but once I got it, I really did like it. It stopped me from doing my favorite RPG strat of power leveling so I can mash the A button through every single encounter. As the game goes on, these encounters get more complex, involving more moves, different enemies with different weird properties, or just having a really tricky puzzle. Some of the late game puzzles had me paying for more time just so I could try and solve them. I think the core idea of moving enemies to create groups is great. It adds a tactical flair to an otherwise very plain combat system. The problem is really what happens after the puzzle is solved. Jumping and hammering are the only attacks in the entire game. There's battle items like fire flowers and POW blocks, but if you get even halfway decent in the battles, you're never going to use them. The other issue that I ran into was puzzle variety. By mid-game, I was running into some of the same puzzles over and over again. There were times that I even got the same puzzle back to back. I don't know how many total puzzles there are in the game, but by the end of it, you'll probably have seen most of them. I wish that there was more to this system. There could be battles with more moves, some algorithms to make random unique puzzles on the fly, or even just adding in more types of attacks for Mario and the enemies. Overall, the combat feels like a missed opportunity, and I think that Nintendo knew that. The game gives you tools that'll solve puzzles for you, and other tools to help you avoid combat altogether. For a small fee of 999 coins, Mario will make an Oliver North style back alley deal with some toads, who will then solve the puzzle for you. And 999 being small isn't even a joke. I don't think I've ever been this this rich in a Super Mario game. Maybe the normal combat is a missed opportunity because Nintendo packed all their resources into the boss battles. The boss battles take normal combat and flip it on its head. Instead, Mario is the one that needs to attack the enemy at the center of the grid. Each of these bosses have a gimmick that makes their fights unique. Most of them also have different stages which pump up the intensity as the fight goes on. These fights are also the only fights in the game where you can't cheese them by using Toad Contras. They're a true test of understanding and skill. They are hands down the best combat portions of the game. Even though there's quite a few boss battles in the game, I really wish that there was more carefully crafted combat competitions. I also wish that there was more origami boss battles. Most of these bosses are arts and crafts supplies, which is cool, but I mean the title of the game is The Origami King. All in all, I'm a big fan of the combat, even if parts of it are less than perfect. If the next game in the series uses this combat, I would be happy as long as they expand on what's here. If the combat doesn't really sound like your thing, it's important to remember that it's a relatively small part of the overall experience. Most of my playtime was spent running around and getting collectibles. I was looking for hidden question blocks, stuck toads, and treasure chests even after I rolled credits on the game. The game is practically begging you to get 100%. I mean, look at this menu. Maybe it's just a me thing, but the second I see a percentage in a menu, it becomes my goal to hit 100%. For the most part, getting 100% adds to the fun. There's some bullshit that it wants you to do for certain trophies, and if you want the actual true 100%, you'll need to do some frankly idiotic requirements, but filling in the 100% on the menus isn't that hard, and it is worth doing. Getting 100% also helps you in the combat. Exploring around areas gets you more money, which can be used to buy better boots and hammers for attacking. Exploring will also get you more health, which boosts your attack power too. Finding more toads also makes their assist powers stronger. More importantly for me, it fills up the stands during combat, and I'd be lying if I said seeing these stands go from empty to full of toads wasn't extremely satisfying. When you're not running around looking for various treasures, toads, or question blocks, you'll be talking to NPCs to move the story forward. And the last few Paper Mario stories have been very lacking, but I thought that this one was decent. The game starts off like it's a horror game with a weird origami Princess Peach, which if we take the perspective of paper, this plot is super fucked up. Imagine if some type of being took over the human race and started to fold people into bizarro brainwashed versions of themselves. It sounds like something out of a Cronenberg movie or the Mandela Catalog. It's some freaky shit. I mean, look at this cutscene. Outside of the opening moments, the plot is mostly dictated by sub-stories in each of the zones. These stories are passable, but none of them are really compelling. There's a certain void in the storytelling. It feels like something is missing, which can be explained by Nintendo hating good ideas. For those of you who do not know, the first 3 Paper Mario games are known for their original characters as well as showing us a different side of established Mario characters. This game doesn't really do any of that because Nintendo just doesn't want them to. Kensuke Tanabe, who longtime viewers would know as the Mario 2 director, produced this game, and he said that making new characters or modifying old characters isn't really possible. This kind of creative decision really hamstrings what a game like this can do, made all the more painful because we know how great the storytelling of these games can be. That virgin lizard from Super Paper Mario I mentioned earlier just straight up can't exist in the Paper Mario games now, and it sucks. The writing is still very funny with references to other Nintendo properties, jokes about the game, and general self-awareness throughout the adventure. And while Nintendo won't let these writers make new characters, they do their best to kinda skirt around that issue. The best character in the game is a Bob-omb. He can't have a name because Nintendo is dumb as fuck, but he tags along for a while. His character arc arc is actually really sweet and sends the game to a much darker path than I thought a game like this would ever go in. He's proof that even within these restrictions, the writers still have a lot of talent, so just let my dogs free, Nintendo, come on. As far as the overarching plot goes, it's actually incredibly based. The main story is about this little turd goblin who wants to take over the world by using streamers. Yeah, streamers. I know that Nintendo hates anyone that makes content around their games, but I never thought that they would make a whole game where the main plot is literally destroying streamers. But you know what, Nintendo? I've been on Twitch before, and honestly, they have a point. Once I sat through the end credits, I thought about how this game fits in the series and about how the series fits into gaming now. In many ways, this game is a return to form. The environments are fun to explore and reward you for exploring. The combat is different, but overall more interesting than the last few titles. There was clearly a lot of work put into the presentation, with the graphics and sound being phenomenal. This game is the first time in a long time where it felt like the team really tried, but at the same time, some of that heart is still missing. Some will try and brush off the love that people have for the older titles as nostalgia, and while that's probably part of it, I don't think that's really fair. I'm sure that there is a group of people that love the first two games simply because of their combat style, but I love those first three games because of their freedom to tell interesting and unique stories that simply wouldn't exist in any other Mario property. The new and interesting characters are what I loved the most about this series, and that's what's been missing since Super Paper Mario, and that's what Nintendo has chosen to remove. Even the bosses of this game aren't really characters. The most characterization they get is right before, during, and after the boss fight. They don't have motivations, they don't have wants or needs, they don't have any backstory whatsoever. Even the main villain of the game could have been anyone, really. He never really interacts with Mario or the crew outside of the first few minutes and the last few minutes. The only real character that this game introduces is Olivia, which, spoiler alert, they kill off at the end of the game to make sure she'll never be around again. It's because of the strong history that this series has that I named the video what I did. If there was no history of fantastic original characters, engaging narratives, or traditional RPG mechanics, I would love this game a lot more. I wish that I could play this game like I played Super Paper Mario all those years ago, perfectly ignorant of the series around it. But I'm older now. I've played those games now, and the heights reached by those first three games has set an unfair expectation for this series that I fear will never return. Paper Mario as a series is capable of being so much more because it has been so much more. Sitting down at the end of this game is probably the most conflicted I've felt about a game that I really liked, and one that I would highly recommend. If you have a Switch, it's a must play, but as a series fan, it's just a bittersweet experience. I can hope and dream that eventually the series will return to its roots. I don't think that it probably ever will, but in the meantime, I can appreciate that this game is at the very least a step in the right direction. If you're not a Paper Mario fan, play this game. I'm sure that it'll probably make you one. Then you can go back and play those older games to realize what you've been missing out on and what Nintendo doesn't want to give us anymore.
Right, we're Japanese.